Whether you've received your promotion recently or even years ago, have you ever felt like you didn't really deserve it? This is a common feeling that leaders have, and thankfully, there are some things that you can do to feel more secure in the role that you have. Like you really deserve to be there. In this episode, we're going to talk about psychological hacks that you can use to overcome this feeling of not being good enough. This is something that almost every leader faces at some point in their career. So you're going to want to stay with us for this entire episode. While men certainly feel this way at times, the problem's bigger for women and underrepresented groups because this feeling of being an imposter can come from feeling like an outsider. And women often have to raise their hand to be considered for leadership positions. This can make them feel like they shouldn't have needed to do that, especially when their male counterparts might be selected without having to speak up at all. I'm Jill Avey, a career success coach, and this is SisterSmart Leadership, the show that explores how women can rise from director to vice president and beyond by fully leaning into their feminine energy as their biggest advantage. Let's get you one step closer to the recognition and promotion you deserve. SisterSmart coach Sarah is here with me to discuss this important topic. So thanks for joining me, Sarah.
No problem, Jill. I'm excited to be here. I think this is a great topic.
It's really a good one because it hits almost everybody. And one
Yeah.
of the first things that I want to talk about is the upper limit problem. The upper limit problem is a phenomenon where we hit what we might have perceived in our own mind and our subconscious, this upper limit of how happy or how successful we can be. And sometimes I relate this to the fat set point that people talk about in weight loss. So you know how you're a certain weight and then you get the flu and you lose 10 pounds and then you bounce right back up to that weight that you were before because your body's used to being there. Our bodies want to be in homeostasis, that they call it. We have these set points that we have where it's our comfort zone, basically. And so when we start to bump up against that ceiling of what we think we can accomplish and how successful we think we can be, sometimes that upper limit problem comes into play to start bringing us back down so that it's an ego protection thing where it's our body's system of how we keep ourselves safe. And so this upper limit problem is something that you can see where maybe you have a big presentation and you have a couple extra drinks that night before because you're nervous and it kind of sabotages you because maybe you're not your best self. Maybe you're a little hungover even in the morning. Or it can even happen where your body, you can have a health problem, like suddenly you get a cold or suddenly you get an illness. And one of our clients actually got an extreme attack of carpal tunnel right when she was about to start working on this big project that was really a stretch for her. And it took her out of her job for 2 full weeks. She couldn't do her job and they had to actually pass that job on to somebody else to start it. And so she ended up missing out on that opportunity. And when we talked about the upper limit problem after that happened, she could look back and see clearly that this is what was happening to her. And it was such a big aha for her. So it was kind of fun for her to see it happening so that she can watch for that in the future. So some of the things that we can do with upper limit problem is look at some of what might come up. So one of the first feelings is feeling fundamentally flawed in some way. This can come up of like, I can't expand to my full creative genius because there's something wrong with me. And that can be particularly strong if you faced adversity as a kid. This is some work that author and scholar Gay Hendricks is the one that developed this whole idea of the upper limit problem. And so he says that it happens because children have a smaller view of the world. And so we start to create stories around what happens. Let's say your parents got divorced. It's likely that you would attribute that to there's something wrong with you because we have this protection mechanism in our bodies from a young age that we want to protect the people around us. We need to believe that our parents are perfect because we are 100% vulnerable to them taking care of us. And so we blame ourselves for the things that are going wrong or that we don't understand when we're kids. And so when we do this, these are subconscious beliefs that we hold well into adulthood, even through our entire adult lives until we start to really examine them and start to flip them around. The second feeling that you might have is like this disloyalty or abandonment. And sometimes this feels like if I succeed, I'm going to leave the people behind me, or I'm going to be disloyal to my roots, or it'll cause me to feel all alone. And that can be tough for people who have risen up through income and class status, particularly for immigrants or people from more humble beginnings. So sometimes family members might say, "Oh, aren't you too big for your britches?" Or "Do you think you're something special?" or something like that. And it might really bring us down a notch and make us hesitant to be able to push into more success. So the third hidden barrier is believing that more success brings a burden. And so the old belief can be that expanding to your full capacity and your success is just going to bring on a whole bunch of other problems, like money problems. Or one common thing that I have heard a lot from our clients is they're worried that their husbands won't be happy with them if they are more successful, particularly if they outshine their husbands and become the breadwinner. And that can be one that is a huge hidden belief. And yet I challenge my clients to go and talk to their husbands. And they've had some wonderful conversations where their husbands are like, "No, go for it. I want you to be successful." This is one where that can kind of have a grip on you. And so you want to think about, it's not going to be a bigger burden than where you are now. You'll be able to figure this out when you get there. And so sometimes this can happen to the youngest child in the family. They may feel a burden for all kinds of reasons because the rest of the family is sort of moving on and they're still little. And that's one common place where Dr. Hendricks has mentioned that. And then the fourth and final one is hidden barrier number 4. So this is the crime of outshining. And so this is kind of, there's some ideas that people have, is that I can't expand to my full success because if I did, I would outshine. This could be the husband or the family or your sister or whatever. This is common because women are socialized to not outshine others. And so this can be a real limit to us. And one of the things that has been noticed is that if you're really smart or pretty, that impact can be even greater because you may have had the experience of continually pulling yourself back so that you can fit in better. Thankfully, we also have a process that Hendricks gives us to use worry as a cue that you might be reaching your upper limit. And so one of the first things that you can start to challenge is if you notice yourself worrying about something, and then think about, how can I let go of these worry thoughts and shift your focus away from them? And then just wonder, what positive new thing is trying to come into being? Then you might get a body feeling when you start to wonder that. And then you can kind of use that body feeling to focus on that more deeply and then see if there's some information there and try to feel it as deeply as you can for as long as you can. And then sometime later, it doesn't even have to come up right then, but sometime later, you might get this idea of what that positive thing that was trying to come through. And so that's a little overview of the upper limit problem. It's one of my favorite topics. And so I gave you a little bit of background of where it might come from, and then this little bit of a meditation that we can do if we start to feel ourselves worrying about things. The next thing that can really be impacting us in this kind of situation is imposter syndrome. So I'd like to hand it over to you, Sarah, to cover that topic.
Great. Thanks, Jill. So I love how the upper limit problem aligns really well with imposter syndrome, and there's a lot of similarities. And I also refer to imposter syndrome as that inner critic, right? And so it's those beliefs and feelings that we're not good enough, we're not doing enough. We start to feel a little bit like a fraud or phony in certain situations, and we start to really doubt our abilities. And I feel like this happens with men, but also, as you had mentioned, as women, we're socialized to find harmony and to collaborate. And so when we start to perhaps shine a little bit more, that imposter syndrome can come in and it causes negative thought patterns. And now these thought patterns, they want to keep us safe. They want to keep us in our comfort zone, that homeostasis. And so, according to some of the work that we highlight in the SisterSmart program, are our accomplice saboteurs. And we'll just start with the judge, for example. And the judge will notice that thought pattern when it starts to judge ourselves, it's judging other people, it's judging our circumstances. And so one thing that you had mentioned with the upper limit problem that aligns really well with this is self-awareness. So we've got to elevate our self-awareness so we even notice that these thought patterns are coming in, right? And so the judge will be like, why is she doing that? Or why are you doing that? So it creates a lot of negativity in our thought pattern. And then the judge also has these accomplice saboteurs, like, for example, the stickler, the controller, or the hyperachiever. So those are 3 accomplice saboteurs we talk about deeper in our program, but I'll just highlight them. Like, for example, the stickler it's a thought pattern that wants us to be perfect, right? We have to bring this perfectionism to the work that we do. And we know that as human beings, we have challenges. And so we have to accept that our humanity is going to bring us challenges in our work, and we're going to run into speed bumps that we didn't expect. And so noticing when the stickler comes up, this isn't perfect enough, this wasn't good enough. So we'll hear those voices, right? So we want to just heighten our self-awareness to who is talking, because that will then lead to actions, will lead to habits and behaviors that may not support us ultimately in where we want to go. And then I want to talk quickly about the hyperachiever. It has an identity that's tying our work and what we're accomplishing and doing to our identity. It causes us to look at failure not as an opportunity, but as something like that can be magnified, even larger than life. And so it causes us not to be in flow. So if we think about the last few minutes of a basketball game, I mean, I grew up playing basketball. I was on the basketball team. And so if I was highly stressed at the end of the game and I needed to get that last shot, I'm going to miss it if I'm listening to the hyperachiever, right? Because I'm not going to be in flow. I'm not going to be enjoying the game and what I'm actually getting from the game. So we do need to notice when we get into that mindset. And then the controller. Now, the controller wants to hold things close, do it all. They may not delegate it because people may not be doing it right. And we think that we're going to get more from our team, but it actually creates less of what we want as a leader. And this one shows up with a lot of people in leadership roles, because we've got to learn to trust our team and that we can delegate with our team, because what will end up happening is our team will be more passive, we'll lose influence. And so it doesn't really create that environment of inspiration and innovation. And so I know in our program, we talk a lot, how do we get out of imposter syndrome? How do we get out of all the self-doubt and listening to these saboteurs? And what we do is we learn the principles of going from the saboteur thought pattern into the sage. So there's lots of tips, and I just want to leave you with a couple. Well, one is just knowing that what they're telling us is trying to keep us safe. And as Jill mentioned, staying in homeostasis, staying inside of your comfort zone, right? And just knowing like there are gifts and opportunities when we run into challenges. And how can we look at challenges like that gift and opportunity? What are we learning from them? That's one great reframe. And also, there's some meditation techniques and tactics that you can bring into your busy day so that it just really slows you down. And so you can notice, like, who am I listening to, and why not listen to that more empowered, creative, empathetic side inside of our mind, and start to look at these maybe failure points or challenges as more as gifts and opportunities inside of them to grow. So by expanding our mindset and really being in a growth mindset and heightening our self-awareness, really it helps you to think differently about your role and some of the challenges. And also, we don't need to listen to the lies that those saboteurs are telling us, because we're starting to push up against our next growth edge and taking our role to the next limit. And so these are some techniques and tactics that will help you be more successful as you grow in your role and you're working with more people and perhaps having new projects that you haven't felt like you've experienced before.
One of the other tips that I would love to add in here is that one of the things that helps me the most, I work with imposter syndrome a lot myself personally, actually. And one of the things that helps me the most is to think about who needs me to do this. So who am I serving in the work that I do, and kind of realigning with the mission of what I do and the vision of where I'm going. And that can take me out of that mode so quickly and quiet down those saboteurs and that inner critic voice. So that's really helpful. And then one of the things that we talk about in the program, a framework that we use, is called crawl, walk, run. And it's something that I learned from the Navy SEALs. And so every time, if you feel a little paralyzed by the imposter, you can think about, okay, how can I crawl here? And I got to tell you, that's gotten me through so many situations. And when I was developing our Toughening Your Skin module, I was interviewing a woman who was an ultra marathoner, and this is somebody who runs 100 miles plus races on a regular basis. And so she would say, okay, what is the smallest step that I need to take when she started to hit the wall? And it just might be having something to eat or having a drink or putting one more step, one more foot in front of the other. And so that kind of idea is really helpful because that momentum will really carry you through, and it gets you started and kind of gets you out of your head. So
Yeah. I love that, Jill. And one thing I want to add, you're reminding me of the David Goggins work. He's also a Navy SEAL, and he talks about every success you can go back to. So being able to remember those past successes of crawling, walking, running, and that's just going to build your capacity to take on more.
And that's fantastic. But something that women don't do quite enough is really taking in their successes. And it's one of the things that holds us back from having the confidence that we could have, because we tend to run on to the next thing and keep doing and not maybe enough time to reflect. So,
yeah, I love that.
Any other thoughts for you, Sarah, on this topic?
I guess to pause and to notice when you're being hijacked is great. So when you start to hear the judge will be the first indicator, and the judge will be judging yourself, others, and your circumstances, should just know that's like the beginning. And so it may be an opportunity to pause there and take, if you have some type of mindfulness practice. I know we do a lot of work on mindfulness in our program, but to pause, and so you can redirect that thought pattern to something more creative and innovative and perhaps empathetic, be more in that sage part of your mind.
Fantastic. Yeah. Such a great point. All right. And so we always like to leave you with 3 shifts that you can make today. So my first shift for you is to see if you can identify where you may have experienced the upper limit in your life. Can you think back to a time when you might have sabotaged yourself before something important without realizing that you were doing that? So that's your first shift. And then the second one is to consider that saboteurs contribute to imposter syndrome. And do you feel any relation to the 4 saboteurs that Sarah was talking about? The judge, the hyperachiever, the controller, or the stickler? That's our perfectionist.
And yeah, for that third shift, I would recommend, we're so busy throughout the day, but take time to pause. You know, maybe it's in the morning before you get out of your car, before you log in the morning, or when you're on your lunch break. But take a moment to pause. Who has been in control for the beginning of the day? Is it one of our accomplice saboteurs, right? Judging you, judging others, judging your circumstances? Or is it the ideal leader that you see yourself to be? Someone who is connecting with others, empathizing, understanding, reframing challenges. And if you notice yourself being more on that side of the saboteur thoughts, use that as an indicator to take some time to pause, to have a mindfulness break, and give yourself that opportunity to reframe, because we'll notice them when we're just feeling like that uncomfort. So I would use that as the third shift to practice.
Beautiful. That noticing piece is so important. I'm so glad you added that. So if you are watching this on YouTube, let us know in the comments which of the things you can relate to. And check out the downloads area for an outline that will give you a cheat sheet for both the things we talked about with the upper limit problem and the imposter syndrome, so you can jog your memory if you're feeling any of these things throughout the day. And if you want to dive deeper into women's leadership and how you can move up in your career, subscribe either on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. We're on a mission to help more women get into leadership and stay there. And so if that's aligned with you, I'd love to have you be part of this community and tune into more episodes on SisterSmart Leadership that will support you in becoming the leader that you want to be. If you're ready to fully lean into your feminine leadership and get promoted from director to vice president and beyond, hit that subscribe button so you'll get all the episodes to come. And check out the recommended video here to see how women are rising up without playing by the old rules that built these male-dominated industries and systems.